Hello, it's me, Ariza Gaming, and welcome back to another episode of Sandbox Showcase, the series where I talk about problems in Oxygen Not Included and how you can solve them easily and efficiently. So today, I want to talk about Plug Slugs. These are a critter that you can find on the Swampy Biomes, on the Metallic Swampy and the Quagmyrus asteroids, with the Spaced Out DLC. And these guys get a little bit of a bad rep. I think they're quite useful, and I think they're quite underutilized at the moment, so let's go into depth on that. So, what do these guys do? Well, they're dynamic creatures that generate electrical power during the night. So, they eat metal ore and refined metal, and they eat 60 kilograms per cycle when they're fully groomed and tame and happy, which is a fairly large amount of metal. But what they'll do is, at night, they'll actually hang on a wire. So the wire can be coming down from the ceiling. And so long as there's a tile of wire that is 2 tiles from the ceiling, Plug Slug can climb onto it, because they have full navigational range around any surfaces that they can slither on. They'll hang off the wire, and during the 3 nighttime schedule blocks, they will produce 1.6 kilowatts of power per slug during those 3 schedule blocks. So that's a fairly decent amount of power. Overall, when you average it out, that's about 200 watts per slug continuously over the course of a day, assuming you store that power up at night and then you use it during the day with batteries. Is this worth that much metal? Well, on these asteroids, you often start with a lot of these caves with a lot of metal ore in them. The plug slugs you'll find in these caves with metal ore, you might find somewhere around 5 of them on a typical sort of spaced out asteroid, so not too many. The main way you would sustainably ranch these guys and feed them is through metal volcanoes. However, the average metal volcano only produces 180 kilograms per cycle of output unless you geotune it. So, one metal volcano is only enough metal to sustain 3 breeding, groomed, happy plug slugs. So this isn't super efficient in terms of power per amount of metal consumed. Now, one thing to note about these guys as well is they do excrete hydrogen gas. They excrete 5% of the consumed mass. But that's only about 3 kilograms per cycle of hydrogen, which is 5 grams per second. And that's about 40 watts worth of power when fed into a hydrogen generator continuously. So factoring in the hydrogen, you're getting about 20% extra power out of your happy, groomed plug slugs. It's not a huge amount of power. However, there is an interesting quirk about these guys that I think actually makes them worth more seriously considering. So, the power they produce is independent of happiness. The only thing the power depends on is how many calories the slug actually has. Not in terms of the amount of food they produce when they die, but how close they are to starving. So a plug slug can, when they're groomed, they'll have 10,000 calories available, and they'll consume 2,000 calories per day before starving. Now, if their stored calories are between 5,000 and 10,000, they'll produce the full 1.6 kilowatts when on the wire. If it's between 3,000 and 5,000 calories, they'll produce 1.2 kilowatts, so 75%. If it's between 0 and 3,000 calories, they'll produce 800 watts, so 50% of the max. And if they're actually starving and miserable, and they've got the little starving counter saying 9 cycles till death or whatever, then they'll only produce 40 watts, which obviously isn't what we want. But what we can do is we can actually feed these guys with automation in such a way they're only being fed the bare minimum to stop them from starving. When they are starving, if they eat even a very small amount, like 1 kilogram of metal, they'll stop starving for a few seconds before they go back to starving. And the critter only takes into account when it's on the wire, or when it's drowsy and it's about to go find the wire, which it will do in the schedule block immediately before nighttime, as soon as this starts. If it's not starving at this specific time of day, it will get on the wire and it will produce the 800 watts. So that's basically what I'm going to talk about today. Is I'm going to show you a ranch that uses 1 tame, groomed breeding slug to fill up 14 other cells with semi-starved slugs. And the aim of this setup isn't to produce a huge amount of meat. These guys do produce 3,200 calories of meat when they die, the same as hatches. But obviously, you don't want to feed them all of your metal ore. So I'm going to assume you're primarily not doing this for the meat. We'll talk about the food economy later. But we're going to have one breeding slug. We're going to have 14 semi-starving slugs. And that's about the right ratio where the one breeder can sustain the whole ranch, and you can maximize the amount of power you're getting for the amount of metal that you're putting in. So yeah, let's begin with just laying this out. So we brushed out our space where we've got a little bit of space to work with, and what we're going to do is we're going to do these little cells at a sort of 3x5 arrangement. So we'll start over here. Let's put a ladder in here so your duplicates can go up and down the whole setup. We're going to leave a 1-tile gap, and then we're going to put in the actual cells. Now, it doesn't matter too much what materials you make these out of. The plug slugs prefer to be at room temperature, generally. So sedimentary rock is absolutely fine. We're going to put a little mesh tile in the top here so that the hydrogen the slugs occasionally produce goes up towards the top of the map. It's not enough that I would bother pumping it in each ranch. I'll just let it rise to the top, and then you can gradually pump it when it starts to accumulate. It's not overly significant for the amount of slugs we're looking at. Put some doors in here, and then we'll put a grooming station over here and a critter feeder. So when you're initially getting this set up, you're probably going to feed these guys with the cobalt ore. So let's actually make the mesh tile out of cobalt, whatever. That's what you're going to have available. So this feeder in here, we'll set this to the 2,000 kilograms capacity, set it on high priority, and we'll get it filled with cobalt ore. So I'll just get some dug out, and then we'll come back. So we've dug out some cobalt ore. We've got the critter feeder here, so we're just going to set this to cobalt ore for now. We're going to fill all these feeders automatically with mechatronics, but we'll start off just by doing this. So the plug slug is eating, he's about to get groomed, so his wildness is going to start to go down. We'll have another look at the plug slug when he's properly tame. But yes, let's continue doing the general layout. So this is where the breeder is, and all of the remaining cells are going to have the semi-starved plug slugs in them. So we're going to duplicate the overall design 2 times for our column. The actual specific arrangement of this doesn't matter too much. This is just what I've ended up with. Put that there, and then we're just going to extend this column over here. And what we'll do is we'll actually leave a 1-tile gap before the next column. We're going to fill that all with mechatronics related stuff. So the plug slugs take up 12 tiles of ranch space each, which is why these cells are 3x4s and they're 12 tiles. We're doing this specifically so that we can constrain the plug slugs in as tight a location as possible, so they feed right at the scheduled time and then they go onto the wire immediately afterwards and they minimize their travel time. That's how you actually get the most efficiency out of semi-starvation ranching them. The less food you have to feed them, the less time they have between eating and going to the wire, the more efficient this setup will be. So again, we'll just continue to duplicate all of this over here. We'll put some doors over here in case we want to get in or out. With this build, you should be able to mirror it pretty well. The automation wires aren't too congested, so if there's any differences with ports, you should just be able to reverse it and have it go a slightly different route, and it's not going to cause too many issues. So I'm just going to show you this this right-hand side orientated build. So here we go. We have all of our cells. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to feed these guys automatically. So what I would suggest is putting a conveyor loader somewhere in your base, set it to allow manual use, and then set it to whatever metal you're going to be feeding these guys. To start with, this could be cobalt ore just from the environment, but later on, once you've got some metal volcanoes hooked up with the steam turbines and you're cooling the metal, you can just have the metal that's going to your breeder slug and all the other slugs automatically onto that line. So because the amount of food consumed by these guys is so low, it's going to be 1 kilogram per cycle for each of these guys, as opposed to 60 kilograms per cycle for the main guy. So the overall consumption is 74 kilograms per cycle. You can have 2 of these setups running comfortably off of one Metal Volcano. So that's just to give you a bit of perspective on that. So we're going to remove these floor tiles here, and we're going to put in some auto sweepers. So again, it doesn't really matter too much what you make them out of. I'm going to make them out of cobalt. You want the center of the auto sweeper to line up more or less exactly with the floor of the room. So we're going to put 3 along here, and then this is the reason why we've got this little gap in the middle, is so we can fit the auto sweepers over here. And that way we can capture all of these rooms with the minimum amount of auto sweepers. We don't want to waste too much power sweeping in the material, otherwise it defeats the whole point of the build. We're also going to put in some conveyor receptacles for holding all of the metal that's coming in. There's space to put 6 down. You will need some radiation research to unlock the conveyor receptacle, but you can get that fairly easily with shine bugs, wheeze warts, crash satellites, uranium, or just from space. So we'll just take our conveyor rail and we're just going to feed it in from the bottom. We're just going to go around, I suppose, like... we'll finish this in a minute. I just want to put down the rest of the loaders first. So yes, all the metal's going to get fed in over here. We're going to put in the wire. So this location immediately above the feeder is where the plug slugs are going to be hanging. It's going to be the same spot in each room. So we'll just copy and paste that across. The feeder will go in the same spot in each room as well. The main difference being this one's going to be set to 1 kilogram, and it will be the same material. Again, we'll set this for high priority. So we'll just copy and paste this across with those settings. And then we'll just copy and paste it across like this. So there we go. The next thing to do, conveyor loaders. So these guys are occasionally going to produce meat when they die. The breeder is going to produce eggs, so you need to get the eggs out. So what we'll do is we'll orientate these conveyor loaders so that the loader cell is in the middle of the room. And that way it can be reached by the auto sweepers. You can see it's in that envelope. And we can put it the exact same place in all of these rooms. There we go. So these ones are going to be set to just edibles. So we can copy and paste that setting across. It's just for getting the meat out of these guys. This one is going to be set to edibles and critter eggs. So this, essentially what's going to happen is this plug slug is going to breed. They're going to produce an egg every 6 cycles once they're tame. And they're going to get dumped sequentially in these rooms via conveyor chutes. So let's put those conveyor chutes in. We don't need a conveyor chute for the breeder room. And essentially what we'll do is we'll put a critter sensor in each of these rooms. And we'll set this to close the chute when there's at least 1 critter or egg in the room. Like this, just with some automation wire. Again, it doesn't matter what you build it out of. Mr. Slug is getting his teeth brushed. Amazing. So, this will close, and then these will all close. There's 14 cells. Because the plug slug is going to start producing eggs when they reach 5 cycles of age. 14 times 6 is 84. So that gets you to 89 cycles. The 15th egg is going to be the last one, and that's going to stay in this room, and it's going to replace the adult plug slug, or the breeder plug slug when they die. And that might take them a little while to hatch. So we'll set this across like this. And then we'll just copy and paste this setting all over. There we go. So now, let's start feeding the egg conveyor line into these rooms. Now these guys aren't going to be producing eggs generally because they're going to be miserable. So it doesn't matter too much how we actually lay chute out. But I'm going to keep it inside the cells for now. So I'll just send it this way. And then we'll bring it back down here. It doesn't matter too much. This one we'll bring it down here. Then we'll bridge across where we're going to have the conveyor rail here. And we'll just keep feeding this conveyor rail all the way up. Get lots of nice xylophone sounds. Bring that one back down here again. And then that's going to terminate in this room. So that's going to stop there. So the next thing we'll do is we'll just send the conveyor rail with all the actual metal in it. This doesn't matter too much where it goes. So I'm just going to send it around the top. In fact, actually what we'll do, instead of sending it all the way around the top, we'll cut it off at that, and then we'll have it fork these different rooms. We'll just run it underneath. There we go. So these will make sure that all of the feeders are filled with metal automatically. And then lastly, we have these conveyor loaders, which are going to be actually feeding in the meat. So what I'll do is I'll actually just bring these all down here. And then we'll bridge these out and dump them over here by the printing pod in this case. But you would want the plug slug meat to go to your kitchen or wherever. We'll just put that chute here, and then we'll just hook all of these up the same way. It doesn't matter too much what your rail looks like for this. Meat going through the room isn't going to change anything about the slugs. So we'll just go down here, we'll bridge it over. You should have plenty of metal for getting some of this built. On the metallic swampy asteroid, at least. Okay, let's tidy that one up. Then this one can just come down here. And that can just bridge over here. So there we go. Now we have all the conveyors for our plug slugs hooked up. So, have we done all the automation for the critter sensors? We have. So that's all hooked up as well. Now, the last thing we're going to want to put in here are batteries. So each breeder slug, because they're going to produce 1.6 kilowatts at night, 200 watts constantly, you would need 120 kilojoules of battery storage. Take 75 seconds of 1.6 kilowatts every night. So that's 3 jumbo batteries worth. Now, so this guy's going to require 3 jumbo batteries worth. Each of these guys, semi-starving slugs, is going to produce 800 watts worth of power. So they're going to require 1.5 jumbo batteries worth each while they're in a semi-starving regime. And they'll require more than that if they're not yet starved. So we'll put a jumbo battery in each room. But you're probably going to want to hook up some more batteries throughout your base just to store the excess power. So we'll put a battery in each room, and then that's 14 jumbo batteries. So what we can do is we can actually put another... Let's do it like this, actually. There we go. Oh. Yeah, there we go. So we'll put another 10 jumbo batteries up here. And that's going to be 24. So when all of the semi-starving slugs are semi-starving, this should be enough battery capacity to hold all the power. But you're probably going to want some more while they're getting to that starving regime. So next we'll hook up all the wires. I would recommend using a conductive wire for this if you're not going to use transformers. The overall power output of the system when it's done is going to be 1.6 kilowatts continuous. 200 watts for this guy, 100 watts for each of these guys continuous. So you could reasonably draw a thermal aqua tuner off of that, or a metal refinery, constantly under use. So if you don't have the refined metal yet, hooking up with regular wires is fine. I'm just going to hook up with regular wires for now. And again, the exact arrangement doesn't matter too much, except this cell specifically needs to have a wire on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect each battery up here individually. So we'll go like that, and then we'll just draw a wire down for each of these loaders and batteries. So that will come down here. This can hook up the auto sweepers on this side as well. There was a guy who did his PhD, or they did their PhD on wire routing and oxygen not including. Now, I don't have a PhD in wire routing and oxygen not included, so let me know in the comments if you have a more efficient general layout of the wires in there. So we'll hook this up across here. And then that's the wire pretty much done. So this will start to get charged up when the plug slug goes to sleep at night. So it is self-starting and it will self-power. Again, the slug has produced the hydrogen. We're not going to worry about pumping it for now, but eventually you want to put a pump at the top of your base so that you can grab the hydrogen and supplement the power from this. It's going to be about 40 watts total. The semi-starving slugs are not going to be producing a large amount of hydrogen at all because they're only being fed 1 kilogram of material instead of 60 kilograms. So I think the overall extra power would be about 54 watts, maybe? Something along those lines. Continuous draw. The hydrogen is not the main thing. It's mostly just an annoyance. You also want to drain the hydrogen away from the cells, because whenever the plug slugs hang out in hydrogen, their chance of laying a smog slug egg increases, and smog slugs don't produce power. However, if you do get the occasional smog slug, look after them, because they can pump 70 grams per second of gas on average without using any power, and they filter out the unbreathable gases for you and dump them into pipes at night, like this guy dumps into a wire at night. So having them around can actually be quite handy considering how power expensive gas pumping is. But you mostly don't want them breeding in here. You want the regular plug slugs because you're trying to get the power directly from the slugs with this build. So, is there anything else left to do on this? There's actually the automation. So, there's a few things to do with this. So, we're going to put a we're going to put a cycle sensor in. Now, this is important because we need to activate the auto sweepers at the specific time just before the plug slugs get drowsy. So they can eat just before they get drowsy. We'll set it to start at, say, 81%, and then be active for 1%. So that's going to be active for 6 seconds every cycle. Maybe we'll increase it a little bit. Maybe we'll increase it to 2%. Make sure that the middle ones are getting the feeders loaded. You want this to be as low as possible to make sure that all the feeders are getting loaded and they're not reloading the feeders so the plug slugs are re-feeding. If they are, you'll get slightly less efficiency out of this. So let's do 81% and 2% for now. And what we'll do is we'll plug the top 2 auto sweepers over here. This auto sweeper is going to get automated differently. And then we'll just feed that wire down here to the other auto sweepers. So this grid sensor here, when this room is full, we're going to tell this sweeper to stop loading stuff. So it's not going to remove the egg from this room. So we're just going to hook that up, say, down here. And then we'll just go down here. So that's what the complete automation for this plug slug complex is going to look like. It's not super complicated. And it shouldn't change too much if you orientate it left to right. So, yeah, there we go. That's pretty much the build. So now, what we'll do, just to get it started, because this guy is going to take a long time to produce all those eggs. He's going to take 100 cycles his whole lifetime to produce those eggs. So just to show you the concept and to just get it started, we're going to set up a very quick, regular breeder ranch where we're going to have some... We're going to spawn in some plug slugs. We're going to groom them, but we're not going to feed them. So this way, they'll get down to that sort of starving regime, so I can show you what it's like when they're actually starving. Get rid of all of this stuff as well. So, what, is that 24 tiles? Yeah, that's 24 tiles. That's good. We'll put a... Again, this is just to illustrate the build. We'll put a critter condo in here. And I'm just going to spawn in a few slugs just to get this process jump started. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And Mimar is going to get on grooming all of these guys. Or Nails is, I think, actually. Mimar is just having to wander around. Right. In any case, I'll be back in a minute once it's nighttime. See you in a minute. So we're back. It's just for nighttime in the schedule block. We have all of our Plug Slugs in here. We have a plain groomed one in here that's at max calories. And then the rest of these Plug Slugs are at 0 calories. They are not very happy, but they will still produce power for us. They won't produce too many eggs. This reproduction rate should go down to 0 when they recognize that they're miserable. So we're just going to unpause it. And as you'll see, the critter feeders aren't quite loaded yet. This time is just about to trip. And we're just about to activate all of the mechatronics. You can see now the loaders are all getting loaded. Plug Slugs thus immediately go over to the feeders. Every single loader got loaded. Most of them didn't get loaded more than once. So in general, these guys should only have about 30-ish calories. Yeah, so that's all good. And now you can see the next schedule block has been reached. The Plug Slugs are now all moving into position, and you'll see they all have around 30 calories available. So they're not quite starving yet. Now they're drowsy. They're going to go into position. They will end up in this position for about 1 schedule block. Because they're unhappy, they're going to be consuming 400 calories per cycle. So that's about, I don't know, 16 per schedule block. So now it's going to switch over to night. And we're going to see what all these Plug Slugs are getting up to. There we go. So now they're all on the wire. And if we have a look at the overview, you'll see all of these Plug Slugs are generating the 800 watts. This one didn't quite get it. That can be something that happens reload-based occasionally. All the others have been fine. They're all at the same calorie levels. And this one here, the breeder, is at the 1600 watts. So they're able to charge up the batteries pretty quickly between themselves. And we'll just leave it on speed 3 for a minute. You'll see their calories are going to dip below 0, so they're going to start starving on the wire. But even though they're still starving on the wire, they're still generating the 800 watts. So that's the important bit. It is frustrating that this bugs out occasionally. This slug was in the exact same conditions as the other slugs. But this is how you would get your extra power out of your Plug Slugs. And then the day rolls over, and then they all go back to their normal business. A lot of them like to just hang out in the top corner, but now they're just wandering around like usual. So that's absolutely fine. So some quick stats on this while we just watch the Plug Slugs rolling around. So the overall total power output of the system, including the hydrogen, should be about 1,650 watts. With all 14 semi-starving slugs being supplied by eggs from the breeder. These guys are going to be consuming 74 kilograms per cycle of metal if the automation is set up correctly. So that's about 13.4 kilojoules of power, kilojoules of energy per kilogram of metal, i.e. it takes about 3 kilograms of metal, be that refined metal or metal ore, to fill one of these jumbo batteries up once. Let's compare that to just the breeder. So the breeder on its own would produce 240 watts of power, including the hydrogen, and they'd consume 60 kilograms of metal per cycle. So that's about 2.4 kilojoules per kilogram. These guys only consume 1 kilogram to generate half the power. So that is about 30 times the efficiency. And then when you combine the efficiency of the breeder with the efficiency of the semi-starving slugs, you get that end result efficiency of about 13.4 kilojoules per kilogram for the whole system. Now, is this worth actually doing? That's kind of up to you. if you have a refined metal volcano, you can get 2 of these set up easily. That's enough for 3.3 kilowatts of continuous power draw. That's enough for 2 thermo aquatuners and something else, like a tepidizer maybe, or 2 metal refineries, constantly running. It's a fairly large amount of power, and while ideally you would have the mechatronics to get everyone loaded in correctly, you can do this approach manually. We've done this on our Super Sustainable Carnivores challenge. We managed to get that working. You can see they're all eating again. See how the Plug Slugs end up this time. So we did this in a slightly less organized fashion in that Twitch run, and the fundamental principle worked the same. Now you'll notice these guys, again, the exact same thing has happened. 800 watts on these guys, 1600 watts on the breeder, and 40 watts on this one that's glitched. So glitching aside, appears to be consistent. And yeah, I would say if you have a metal volcano or 2 available on your asteroid and you're just getting started, like if you're on the metallic swampy asteroid and you're trying to get set up and you find a metal volcano nearby, you may as well get these guys working on it. It's going to produce a lot more power than just extracting the heat out of the metal alone would. You can extract that out with steam turbines eventually and then feed the cold metal to the Plug Slugs and get even more power. And until you get to the late game where you have so much power that you don't know what to do with, I don't think it's that bad. I think it's pretty reasonable to have one of these set up, consuming a little bit of your metal volcano output, and just getting a nice baseline level of power that recharges at night. It's also pretty convenient using these Plug Slugs, because they charge at night while solar panels charge during the day. So it can help even out your power grid in that respect a little bit as well. And they're very cute. This setup does not produce a huge amount of calories. Because this guy's laying all the eggs, these guys aren't generally laying eggs, you're going to expect about 480 calories per cycle. So if you have 2 of these running off 1 metal volcano, that's going to be enough food for 1 dupe. I mean, bearing in mind you can cook that as well, you could probably get better calorie efficiency out of it by cooking it that way. But I wouldn't recommend ranching the Plug Slugs for food. To get a reasonable amount of eggs, you're going to need to broom them and feed them the right amount, and that's a lot of metal. I would rather ranch another critter that doesn't require this resource. It's very valuable for getting your base online. I would rather use the Pacu instead. You find a lot of Pacu in the same asteroids as these guys, so I think generally they're the better option when it comes to just food. But yeah, those are overall my thoughts on the Plug Slugs. I think they're a bit underrated. It can be a bit fiddly getting them to produce power efficiently, but if you manage to get it set up, it could really help you kickstart your early run. It's a very efficient way of actually getting super sustainable and carnivore at the same time, because the Plug Slugs are also producing a ton of power, and you can have a few breeders eating some of the metal on the map. If you open up more metal volcanoes, you can have more breeders and really get them going and get more food that way, like we did in Twitch. And yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on these guys. Do you branch Plug Slugs at all? Do you use the Smog Slug or the Sponge Slug variants? Do you like to set up your ranches in a slightly different way? I'm sure there's some improvements that can be made to this build, but I just wanted to summarize my thoughts on the semi-starvation approach in this video. If you like what you've seen, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more similar content like this. Discussion videos, tier list videos, meme videos. A lot of Oxygen Not Included stuff, but a fair amount of stuff from other games as well. Subnautica and Mega Aquarium are going. Balatro is also going at the moment. And yeah, overall we're having a pretty good time, especially enjoying the new DLC. So yeah, thanks very much. I'll see you soon. Take it away, Whiskers. Bye for now.
Whiskers sends thanks to the following Twitch subscribers and YouTube members: 999999999, Cyber Dinier, FRD. Grey Area, Neo Deus Machina, Sinister Plank, Sweet Danger Kitty, The Bat Guy, The Max Not Binary, and Uglavisk.